Have you ever heard your name whispered when no one was there? In the dark fields of Ireland, they say when the Dullahan calls your name, it's already too late. They say death wears many faces, but in the old hills of Ireland, it wears none at all. The Dullahan, the Headless rider, a cursed warlord who carries his own rotting skull, grinning as he hunts through the night. When his horse's hooves thunder across the earth, silence follows. No dog barks, no beat of the sings, and when the rider stops, he whispers a name. That name is always the name of the one who will die. I thought it was only a story, something my grandmother told to keep me inside after dark. But when I returned to my village, I learned the truth. Because I have seen him, I have heard him, and one night, he spoke my name. When I was a child, we weren't told fairy tales before bed. We were told warnings. My grandmother would sit by the peat fire, her fingers gnarled and trembling as she spun her stories. But these weren't gentle fables about kind spirits or foolish tricksters. No, these were tales meant to keep us inside after dark, to make us close the shutters tight and never, ever wander the road alone. Of all her stories, one name haunted me most, the Dullahan. She would lean forward, the fire casting shadows across her sunken cheeks, and whisper, "He rides when the night is blackest, a man without a head, astride a horse as dark as a coffin. And in his hand he carries his own skull. Its flesh is withered and rotting, yet its eyes never rest. They roll and roll, searching, always searching." I used to cover my ears when she spoke those words, but she would pull my hands down and make me listen. He is no ghost, no trick of the mist. He is death itself, boy. When the Dullahan stops riding, all fall silent. No owl calls, no dog barks. And then he speaks a name, only one name. And when he does, her voice always fell then, her gaze distant. That person dies before dawn. The villagers believed every word. Doors were bolted, windows shuttered, and prayers muttered when the air grew too still. Horses shied from empty roads, cows kicked at invisible shadows, and even the bravest men quickened their steps at dusk. And there was one more detail my grandmother always repeated, her tone lowering to a hiss. No gate, no lock, no chain of iron can keep him out. He goes where he pleases. The only thing that turns him aside is gold. Even the faintest glimmer of it makes him recoil. For reasons no one knows, death fears the shine of the living sun. I thought her stories were just that, stories. Old women's tales to frighten children into obedience. But now, years later, I can tell you this, she spoke the truth. Every word of it. I know, because I have seen the Dullahan ride. And I know he is searching still. I had not set foot in that village for more than 15 years. Life had taken me far away, first to the city, then across the sea. But a letter brought me back. My uncle had died, and his cottage, half sinking into the earth at the edge of the moors, was now mine. The lawyer suggested I sell it quickly, but something pulled me home, something heavier than memory. The night I arrived, the air felt thick, not like the city's pollution, but heavy in another way, like the land itself was holding its breath. The village was smaller than I remembered. Half the cottages stood empty, their windows black, their gardens overgrown. The pub had no laughter spilling out of it, only the low murmur of men who raised their glasses without meeting each other's eyes. I asked about my uncle. A silence followed, broken only when one of the men muttered, "Dropped in the fields. No wound, no sickness. Just gone." The others hushed him, but I caught the quick glances, the way their hands made the sign of the cross. That night, I slept in my uncle's cottage. The roof groaned in the wind, and mice scuttled in the thatch. I lay awake listening to the silence, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums until you think you'll scream just to break it. Then I heard it, a sound like a gate creaking open, though I had latched mine myself. I went to the window, heart thudding. The night was black, starless. The trees bent in the wind, but the gate stood wide, swinging slowly back and forth. I stepped outside, lantern in hand. The air was cold, too cold for summer. My breath fogged, drifting into the dark. That's when I noticed it. The animals were wrong. Not just quiet, wrong. The cow in the pen stood stiff as stone, eyes rolling white, foam at its mouth. The old sheepdog that had barked at every shadow in its life lay pressed flat against the ground, tail between its legs, trembling. Even the crickets, the owls, the endless chorus of night, all of it was gone. The silence was absolute. And then, faint, so faint I thought I imagined it, came the sound of hooves. Far off, yet drawing closer. A slow, steady rhythm that shook the air. Clop, clop, clop. I froze. My grandmother's voice echoed in my mind. When the Dullahan rides, nothing can stop him. And when he calls your name, you will not live to see the dawn. The sound grew louder. The earth trembled underfoot. The gate clattered against its post. My lantern flickered wildly as though a storm had blown through, but the air was still. I did not wait to see more. I stumbled back into the cottage, bolted the door, and pressed my back against it, trembling. But even through the walls, I could still hear the hooves. Slow, heavy, drawing closer. And just as suddenly as they came, they stopped. The silence returned, deeper than before. I waited until my legs gave out, sliding down the door to the floor, my breath ragged in the dark. When dawn came, I dared step outside again. The gate still swung open. The grass along the path was blackened, scorched in the shape of hooves. That was the first night, the first omen, but not the last. The second night was worse. I told myself the hoofbeats I'd heard had been nothing more than a trick of my mind, a mix of exhaustion, grief, and old childhood fears. But the land itself seemed determined to prove me wrong. It began before the sun had even set. I found the dog stiff in the yard, foam crusted on his lips, his eyes wide and glassy. His body was cold, though I swore I had heard him whining just minutes before. When I buried him, the earth was harder than it should have been, frozen solid in patches though the air was warm. As I dug, I unearthed something strange, a lump of iron, rusted and black. It was shaped like a horseshoe, but too large, nearly the span of my forearm. That night, I lit every candle I could find, their flames throwing nervous shadows on the walls. The house smelled of tallow and smoke. I sat with my back against the hearth, listening, and again the silence came. It rolled across the land like a tide. No insects, no night birds. Even the wind seemed to die. It was as though the world itself had stopped to listen. Then the gates, one by one, every latch on the property clicked open. I heard them in the dark. The front gate, the stable door, even the small chest I kept in the corner creaked wide as though a hand had lifted the lid. The air grew colder. My breath fogged white. And then came the sound again. Hooves. This time closer, heavier, slower. Clop, clop, clop. Each step shook through the ground, rattling the glass in the windows. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the rusted horseshoe in my hand like a weapon. The hoofbeats stopped. And then knock, knock, knock. 3 heavy raps on the door. Not frantic, not angry. Just deliberate. As though whoever stood there already knew the door was useless. I held my breath. My heart hammered so loud, I feared it would give me away. Then came a voice. A whisper. So faint I almost doubted it. But it slid through the cracks of the wood like smoke curling around me. It spoke a name. Not mine, but one I knew. Siobhan. My aunt's name. The whisper was followed by silence. Then the hoofbeats resumed, slow and steady, fading into the distance. I didn't sleep until dawn, and at sunrise, word came from the village. My aunt was dead. No wound, no sickness, just gone, as though her life had been snuffed out like a candle flame. The villagers would not speak to me. When I tried to ask, they turned their faces away. Only the old man at the crossroads dared whisper, his voice trembling with the weight of his words. You heard him, didn't you? The rider. He's come again. His eyes burned into mine, fearful, accusing. Pray, lad, pray he never speaks your name. The third night, I didn't bother trying to sleep. I sat in the cottage with the lantern burning low, my hands trembling around the rusted horseshoe I had dug from the earth. I knew it would do no good. Every story said it. No gate, no lock, no chain of iron could stop him. Only gold, and I had none. The night grew still again. Too still. The kind of silence that makes you think the air itself is listening. And then it came. The hoofbeats. This time, there was no mistaking them. Heavy, thunderous, impossibly close. Clop, clop, clop. The ground shook, dust falling from the rafters, the dishes rattling on the shelf. The dog was gone. The animals were dead or scattered. There was nothing left to warn me. Nothing but the pounding of that unholy steed. I forced myself to the window. The mist rolled across the moors, thick and silver in the moonlight, and through it came the horse. It was black as midnight, its mane writhing as though alive, steam pouring from its nostrils. Sparks flew where its hooves struck the earth, burning the grass black. Its eyes glowed, not like fire, but like the last embers of a dying sun, dim, hollow, endless. And astride its back was him, the Dullahan. He rode hunched, broad-shouldered, armored in scraps of black leather that looked older than any grave. In one hand he clutched the reins, in the other, his head. He carried it like a lantern, high for all to see. The skin was mottled and decayed, stretched too thin, with lips peeled back and a grin that had too many teeth. Its eyes never rested, rolling wildly in their sockets, searching, scanning. Even in the distance I could feel them, cold and heavy, sliding over me. The mouth moved, slowly, deliberately. I couldn't hear the words at first, only the hiss of air like breath from a tomb. Then the whisper came, clear as if it had been spoken in my ear. Amen, my name. The lantern slipped from my hand and shattered. Darkness swallowed the room, broken only by the pale moonlight streaming through the glass. I stumbled back, heart hammering, as the Dullahan drew nearer. His horse trampled the earth, closer, closer, until the very walls shook. The door burst open, not splintered, not broken, but as though unseen hands had unlatched it from within. The Dullahan ducked his massive frame through. The horse somehow, behind him, though no space should have allowed it. The smell hit me first. Rot, damp earth, and the copper tang of old blood. He raised his head higher, the rolling eyes fixing on me. The mouth split into a wider grin, stretching the skin until it cracked. I dropped to my knees, clutching the horseshoe, whispering prayers I barely remembered. And for a moment, just a moment, he stopped. The head tilted, the eyes rolling toward the lump of iron in my hands. Then the grin split wider, and he laughed. The sound was not human. It was the grinding of stone, the creak of coffin wood, the rustle of worms in the grave. He leaned closer, bringing the head down until it hovered inches from my own. Its eyes rolled back, then forward, staring straight into mine. I could not move, could not breathe, could not think. Then, suddenly, he pulled away. The horse reared, flames spilling from its nostrils, and the Dullahan swung himself back into the mist. The hoofbeats thundered into the distance, fading, fading, until only silence remained. When I finally found the courage to rise, I saw it, burned into the wooden floor where he had stood, the black mark of a handprint. And inside my skull, echoing still, I heard the whisper, my name. After that night, I knew I couldn't ignore it. The Dullahan had spoken my name. My death was sealed, but some stubborn part of me refused to simply wait for the end. If death had chosen me, I wanted to understand the hand that carried it. So I went searching. The villagers would not speak. Doors closed at my approach, shutters slammed. Conversations died the moment I entered the pub. Their silence was worse than open fear, as though even words might summon him. Only one man dared whisper to me, the old priest at the edge of the village. He was bent and gray, his eyes watery, his hands shaking as though palsied. Yet when I said the name Dullahan, he grew still, as though stone had set in his veins. At first he refused me. He told me to leave, to flee the land, to bury myself in prayer. But when I pressed him, he sighed, crossed himself, and beckoned me inside. By candlelight, he led me to the back of the chapel, to a locked chest. From it he drew a bundle of parchments, cracked with age, their ink faded and flaking. "This is no ghost story," he said, voice quivering. "No child's tale. The writer was a man once. And worse than a man, the parchments told the tale. His name had been Kieran MacDub, a warlord who ruled the hills in the age before the church. He was a man of endless cruelty. Prisoners he beheaded for sport. Farmers he flayed for their crops. He carried his enemies' skulls on spikes, decorating his fortress with them like trophies. When a priest came to baptize him, he mocked the rite, calling it weak. When the Fae of the hills offered him a pact of peace, he spat in their faces, boasting that no god nor spirit would master him. The day of his death was the day of his damnation. He was struck down in battle, but before his head could be taken, the earth split open. Some said the Fae dragged him into their realm. Others said the devil himself came to claim him. But when night fell, his warriors saw him ride again, headless, his skull grinning in his own hands. No sword could cut him, no fire burn him, no prayer banish him. He was cursed, bound to ride forever as death's herald. And so he became the Dullahan, the Dark Rider. The priest's voice dropped to a whisper. They say the head sees everything, past, present, and future. It seeks the souls that must die. When he whispers a name, it is not by choice, it is fate. And fate cannot be undone. I asked him then, why gold? Why does it drive him back? The priest's lips trembled. Gold is the metal of the sun, he said. It carries the living light of the world, the one thing the rider cannot bear. But it does not save you. It only buys you time. I stared at the parchments, the crude drawings of the rider with his grinning head, and felt the weight of doom pressing on me. My name was already on his lips. Time was all I had left. The priest's words gnawed at me. Gold buys you time, not freedom. I had only a handful of coins, my uncle's wedding ring, a few trinkets I'd carried from the city, thin shields against something that had stalked death itself for centuries. That night, I didn't wait in the cottage. I couldn't. I packed what I could carry and set out on the road, hoping distance might spare me. But even as I walked, I knew the truth. There was no distance wide enough. The silence found me first. It rolled across the fields like a tide. The wind died, the insects hushed, and the world itself seemed to hold its breath. Then came the hooves, thunder on the earth. Clop, 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 closer, closer. Each step rattled my bones. I ran. The road twisted through the moors, the mist rising thick around me. My lantern swung wildly, casting broken shadows. Behind me, the sound grew, filling the night, until it felt as though the whole world was shaking with the thunder of his hooves. I turned once, against every instinct, and saw him. The horse burst through the mist like a storm given flesh, its mane twisting like living shadows, its eyes burning hollow white. Sparks flew where its hooves struck the earth, and steam hissed from its nostrils like smoke from a forge. And astride its back rode the rider, the Dullahan. His armor was rust and shadow, his head swinging in his left hand like a lantern. The skull's eyes spun wildly in their sockets, and then locked on me. The grin split wider, the jaw creaking as it whispered my name. Amen. I stumbled, falling to my knees in the mud. The whisper echoed inside my skull, more felt than heard, as though it had already carved itself into my bones. With shaking hands, I ripped the chain from around my neck, the gold ring I'd carried from my uncle's cottage. I hurled it into the air. The rider stopped. The horse reared, screaming like iron on stone, sparks bursting from its hooves. The skull hissed, the grin twisting in fury. The Dullahan recoiled, shielding the head from the faint glimmer of gold. For a moment, the world held still. Then he lowered the skull, and a whisper came again. Not my name. Someone else's. I do not know who. Perhaps a farmer in the next village. Perhaps a child asleep in their bed. Whoever they were, I had bought my life with theirs. The rider turned. The hooves thundered away, fading into the mist. The silence lifted. The insects sang again. I was alone, alive, but not free, because I knew the truth now. Gold only delays him. It does not stop him, and the Dullahan does not forget. I lived that night. I have lived many since. Whenever I hear the hoofbeats draw too close, I give him something. A coin, a ring. Once, in desperation, I threw my father's crucifix. Each time it works. Each time, he turns away. But each time I know the cost. Each time, someone else dies in my place. The villagers do not speak to me now. They know what I have done. They know I have bartered lives for my own. And still, the coins are running out. Even now, when the nights grow too quiet, when the air turns too cold, I hear the sound of hooves drawing closer. Clop, clop, clop. He is coming for me. And one day, when the last coin slips through my fingers, he will whisper my name again. And this time, I will not escape. Remember to like and subscribe for more chilling content.